Hey guys, Rob and Georgia here with you, aka VHS82 apostrophe with season 2, episode 6, entitled Secrets. That is, we are in the world, or returning to the world that is of the Walking Dead. This one has a lot of moving parts, boy, and I'm probably not going to remember everything. But I am trying to get back into this thing called The Walking Dead. I'm already, a full season and 5 episodes in, so this is episode 6. So I'm going to try to get back on the horse with this and see how it goes. So right off the bat, Secrets. Drops November 20th, 2011, directed by David Boyd. It's interesting. David Boyd is interesting. This is one of the things with, I know there's a lot of, you got your fans of The Walking Dead and those aren't, and those who, I was one of those who bailed somewhere in season 3. I can't remember. It's been so long. And since I've sort of re-engaged with it, all this helps that I got this for a gift from my oldest son. And so I hate having something like this and not do something with it. And so I started re-engaging, remembering, names like Greg Nicotero and K&B Effects and The Driving Force, Frank Darabont early on. Just reasons, a lot of reasons for me to re-engage and actually try to do something with it. So much like my X-Files episode, but that's, into season 4 already, heading, pretty good. In fact, today's Unru, which I'll do right after this. But anyways, David Boyd, one of the things that makes something like this fun is actually seeing what everyone's done. Those who pop in, direct an episode or 1 or 2, or perhaps more than that. The writers engaged in the subject matter and just how it sort of evolves over time. With David Boyd, he ultimately is responsible for 13 episodes of The Walking Dead, spanning from season 2 to 10. And of late, he just did episodes 6 and 7, directed, of Daredevil Born Again. 2 episodes there from that. So he's currently working in some pretty relevant material, but he got his first assignment was actually The Bionic Woman back in 2007, episode 6, entitled The List, which is, I've never seen it, but that's, got to start somewhere, right? But here's what's really intriguing with David Boyd. As cinematographer, his first gig was a cult classic in its own right, and that is The Laughing Dead. He shot this, which is pretty cool. I was just looking for the casting and stuff on the back of this real quick. It's not here conveniently, but anyways, this was his first gig. This is from 1989. John Beekler, the effects team on this, which he'd go on to, of course, direct Friday the 13th, Part 7, A New Blood. So that's cool when you can see that kind of evolution. Also, ultimately, he had actually shot cinematographer 9 episodes of The Walking Dead, which is pretty cool in its own right. And Ron Schmidt, the cinematographer for this episode, as well as Chupacabra, the episode preceding this one. His work would span, as cinematographer, would span seasons 2 and 3, 25 episodes now, which is a pretty good piece of work there. So we'll keep our eyes on him. But he got some genre work early on as a cinematographer. I'm not familiar with this first one, Dead of Night from 88, but also The Terror Within. I'm familiar with that one. And these last 2, Lord of Illusions, Clive Barker's film from 95, as well as Darabont's The Mist from 2007. Shouldn't be too surprised with that. Darabont was well known for bringing people that he had experience working with, right? And so, of course, the work of K&B, led by Greg Nicotero, Berger, and Kurtzman. which, I mean, if you're a child of, I was born in 70, so if you're a child of, growing up through the 80s, you became pretty familiar with Canby's work if you were a horror film fan like I was. So anyways, a little bit of a backdrop there, and as we lead into this thing real quick here, we've been engaging. This has been something me and my boys have been watching. Of course, it kind of took a long layoff from, but we've been watching this in black and white, and it is, I really do think that Darabont sort of conceived this in a sense, in a way that it could look good in black and white. Of course, if you know anything about his own work, he put out, since I got it here handy, he put out The Mist in his own black and white cut, which is absolutely just gorgeous to look at, and gives a nice little introduction on why black and white is so important, even today. And you're seeing it more and more with the black and chrome edition of Fury Road, Miller's work there. I believe there was a black and white cut released of Wolverine, or I think it was Logan, right? I think that's what that was entitled. But you're seeing it more common. It's becoming just, studios are becoming friendlier and friendlier to the format, which is cool. It probably doesn't work for everything, but be surprised how well it does work. So anyways, this one entitled Secrets. This is interesting. Right off the bat, a little trivia. I was stunned to see in the original material, the graphic novelization of The Walking Dead, Andrea, who we'll see in this episode, will get hitched up with Shane, which is probably good for Shane, although Dale isn't too up on it, but probably should be, because this is an opportunity for Shane to really sort of mellow out a bit. And if you remember any previous episodes, he is one of my more favorite characters. Just an engaging actor to watch on screen. Unfortunately, I've never taken the time to get into The Punisher, but I hear really, really great things about his work in that, especially of late, right? But Andrea hooks up with Dale in the original material, apparently. That's kind of weird, but with this, I didn't read the original graphic novelization of it, so it's only weird to me in the sense of the context I have, which is this show. And so I don't know, maybe it's not weird at all in the other, and that could be very well. But Secrets is definitely, and this was the least viewed episode, which is a little stunning. With a title with Secrets, you think everything's just going to come out of the bag, and you think this would have just hyped up everyone. And apparently it didn't at the time, which is surprising. But this, as an alternative title, maybe could have been something like Dale 2... because there's at least 4 instances where Dale confronts a major character and maybe that's the best way to tackle this thing. So, the whole episode revolves around the Secrets, 2 primarily that much of the episode revolves around, and that is Laurie's hidden secret that she is pregnant, which she tells Dale that she believes it is Rick's baby, and the walkers in the barn that Herschel is keeping secret for reasons that aren't that, he still sees them as people. He's got family, in the barn. And we see this, I do believe, if I'm not mistaken, we see this sort of similar themes pop up in Survival of the Dead, George A. Romero's fifth, well, Diary. I think Diary comes after Land and then Survival. So, but similar themes, if I remember that one right. That's not a major go-to in terms of Romero's work for me in terms of the Dead, but it seems like it's some similar themes. But this ought to have been maybe alternatively entitled Dale 2, because you've got, I think the first one is Dale to Glenn. You know, he notices Glenn's nervousness. Glenn's just walking around, just acting, which he's not the only one who notices. If I remember, Rick notices, Shane notices. Shane kind of laughs about it, or maybe Rick, they both sort of laugh about it. But ultimately, Dale confronts him on it, and I think that's how it went down. And he just blurts out, you know, Laurie's pregnant, there's walkers in the barn, what do we got to worry about? And, you know, and so that leads to Dale confronting Herschel, but covering for Glenn, in that he doesn't want Glenn to, you know, take the rap on it. So he basically makes up a story, or maybe he actually did do it knowing full well what was in the barn, or at least what Glenn says. And so tells Herschel straight up, I took a walk, got too close to the barn, I heard the moans, the groaning, and all that, and what's going on? Well, you know, Herschel pleads his defense. I mean, you know, look, if this is your place, you're living, and they believe they got that barn secure, I mean, it's sort of his call, right, I guess. But there is some tension there between Dale and him in terms of, I don't really think you understand what you're dealing with here. There's nothing that's going to bring these creatures back to their more personified selves. You're not getting your family back. You're not getting, these things are monsters. And just to simply call them walkers, actually, I think a zombie's always been, or ghoul, or, you know, it seems to be a little bit more of a terrifying term to place on these things. Just to refer to them as simply as walkers, as sort of like, well, I mean, they're sort of dangerous, but nah, they're not really. No, they're dangerous. I mean, these are zombies in effect, right? And so he confronts him on that, and as he's tending to his horse, the horse that Daryl, Daryl had fallen off and got spooked by the snake in Chupacabra, which was a phenomenal episode. I really liked that episode. And so he's tending to Nervous Nelly. Is it Nervous Nelly? I think. And so that's sort of how, you know, right, he engages him on that, and then ultimately brings up the walkers in the barn. You got Dale confronting Laurie once Glenn has blurted out these secrets. He confronts, and in a very sort of benevolent, passive way, but Laurie, you could tell she's starting to feel cornered where the truth is going to come out, which is interesting because she's quite hypocritical, actually, when she finds out that Herschel has already told Rick, basically, you guys are, you guys are, you're heading out here soon. You need to get on out. The boy is, Carl is on the mend, seems to be doing better, and Herschel has just about had enough with the tension there, with having a group there living close to him, and I think he feels like he's sort of losing his ability to maintain control over the entire situation as he has it there on his farm. And so Laurie just kind of lashes out at Rick, like, why are you keeping this a secret? And like you're the one that should be talking here. I mean, you're holding back your pregnancy. You're holding back the fact that you had a relationship with Shane, which that'll come out toward at the end, which, you know, Rick recognizes as it's kind of like obvious writing on the wall. He kind of, you know, it's hard not to realize that probably happened. But I mean, you know, who is she to talk, right? I mean, there's a lot of secrets here going around in this. And so that is an interesting, where Dale sort of gets, I think he sort of primes her up for finally just divulging this necessary. Maybe the most interesting confrontation, though, could be Dale and Shane. When Shane gets, when Shane and Andrea get back from the run, he following up on a lead. And I don't want to forget, too, there's a great moment between Andrea and Daryl early on where he's mending up from being shot by, and, you know, that's the one thing about, there is so many moving parts with this thing. With a lot of these episodes, it's hard to just maintain only after a couple viewings everything going on. But a great, nice little moment where she basically apologizes. What her apology is actually a little bit more, carries a little bit more conviction with it than when Shane tries to apologize to Andrea for when, okay, so they're out at the shooting range, they're getting some of these, some of Herschel's people gunned up, and they realize a gem in the dust, as it were, in the dirt. Andrea is quite a shooter, and so Shane takes her out to do some moving target practice, in which case she cannot shoot a moving target, which is a problem in this world. And he really eggs her on, man, even brings up her sister. And of course that causes her just to explode and walk off. And he catches up with her and does his best Shane apology to her, which leads to the invite for her to join him to be his backup. And he follows up on a lead. So remember, we're still waiting for Sophie, and that could have been the granddaddy of them all to find that out in this episode, but that's probably the next episode we find out her. Maybe that would have been too much in one episode, but they go into town and to see if maybe they can find Sophie is there. And all they find is a town overridden by walkers. Nearly get out of it, but it's a great moment for Andrea, who has a jam, and Shane's covering for her, and he's letting her work, problem solve in a real moment, a live moment, which is, which is maybe was his plan all along, hoping an opportunity would arise that he could allow her just to be in a real-time situation. And ultimately, she has walkers converging on her, and he's like, I got you, but this is yours. You've got to take care of this, kind of, and it works. That thing clicks, and she just boom, 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 boom. And so on their way back to the farm, they have their moment together. And this is probably a good thing, which Dale, leads to that confrontation where Dale confronts Shane as they return, because I think he pretty much sees the writing on the wall that they just had some time together. And he doesn't like that at all. And he doesn't like Shane, if you remember when, Shane had Rick in his target a few episodes back. So he kind of throws all this in his face. And it's probably not, of all the conversations he has, this is probably the one not well thought out. He's dealing with someone who probably would not think twice about putting a bullet in his head. And I think he probably realizes he kind of got it. He's had a great run of confrontations in this episode, and I think his luck finally runs out with Shane, and that probably wasn't wise. And, seeing Shane with Andrea is an opportunity to get Shane away from, all that has been there with him and Laurie and Carl and just that whole situation. So this is probably a great opportunity, and Dale just doesn't see it for what it is. And embrace it. And so it'll be interesting. I don't remember, like I said, I think initially my first run with this on TV, I bailed somewhere in 3, I think. And I can't remember why I bailed exactly, but I don't remember exactly how some of this all plays out, which is great for this, right? Because I can be somewhat surprised when I finally see it unfold and go, oh yeah, I remember now. So I guess, this all leads to the final main non-Dale confrontation, which is the moment we've been waiting for with Laurie and Rick, in which he takes some morning. Of course, there's another moving piece to this. See, this is crazy. You got Glenn and Maggie. Glenn will do a run, in which case, Laurie comes to terms with the fact that Glenn has told Dale, because the kid can't keep a secret. And that, and that's just who he is. Nothing bad at all. But him and Maggie, he'll take Maggie with him on a run for, of all things, morning after pills. But what's interesting is he also brings back pregnancy vitamins. The terminology just left me. Prenatal pills. There you go. I've had 4 kids, been kind of through this, well, at least for my right, yeah. So so he kind of brings them both to, but narrow escape. Maggie almost gets chewed up by a zombie, by a walker, which Glenn saves her. And this is when Maggie begins to turn a little bit and realize, wait a minute, maybe having the walkers in the barn isn't the greatest thing in the world. So that's interesting. But that leads to a major confrontation between, maybe the title should have been Confrontation, because Maggie just explodes on Laurie. She blames her, right, for sending, as she tells Glenn, you're just walker bait, for these guys. Maybe you need to wake up, because she's falling for him. And I get it. This is what drives some people. This is what drove people off the wagon. This is like almost like a soap opera-ish type narrative. You got so many moving parts, but I think in the end, that's probably why it lasted 11 seasons, because of the continual story. And sure, you probably had people coming in, people exiting, this sort of people coming back, what's going on, because they, caught a TV spot for a season premiere maybe or whatever. But all in all, 11 seasons, you can't deny Canby's work, and Nicotero himself will direct, and he'll end the whole entire 11 seasons off with the final episode. So you can't really argue the survivability, if I can say that, of this show for lasting as long as it did, and for the spin-offs and everything else. So Laurie will she'll spill the beans to Rick on everything. So it'll be interesting to see now the next episode and later see the tension that may or may not be there between Rick and Shane. See, I can't remember how this all goes down. I think in the moment, Laurie agrees. Well, she threw up the pills, right? So the hope is they'll have the baby. And I think I do kind of remember where that all heads, actually. So it's interesting. I think I've pretty much covered pretty much everything that's important or relevant, I think. There's some great moments, and there's some really great moments that work in black and white, especially. Pretty much the whole episode works great in black and white, but there's some specific moments, whether it's with, Shane and Andrea working on the moving target, or it's just, if you've never watched the show in black and white, it's really worth watching it in black and white. It's definitely worth it. Just turn the color off your TV and check it out. So the next episode is, I think we'll just leave it there. So pretty much all the secrets are out of the bag. The only thing we really don't know about is Sophie's fate, which I'm pretty sure we'll learn here real soon. I'm looking forward to seeing that unfold, actually getting that finally out of the way. And I do believe once we leave Herschel's farm, isn't the prison next? I think that's next. It's going to be interesting to see how all of this lays out. The next episode is pretty much dead already, directed by Michelle McLaren, which is, I only mention it because in season 9 of The X-Files, episode 7, John Doe, she directed that, which is interesting. So pretty much dead already is next up on that. So interesting. So anyways, 23 minutes, probably 23 minutes too long, but it is what it is. So I'm going to try to get back on this thing and see what happens with it. And now sort of switch gears and roll on into The X-Files. So as always, man, these things off with Go Dogs.
This is not a dream. Not a dream. It might be useful to